everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You are listening to episode 108. It's for the week of January 3rd, 2021. Of all the things to fuck up, man, I fucked up the date. I didn't mess up on the year.
Dude, I actually ordered a wall calendar today for the office.
Really?
Yeah, and then one for the kitchen too. And I totally ordered like travel ones. Like one is Rome, and then the other one is like New England. 2021.
Did you get like the cottages, like the New England cottages?
Dude, I had such a hard time deciding. I felt like a 75-year-old grandmother, just like shopping on Amazon for calendars. I couldn't make a decision. There were castles, there were trains.
Oh my God. It's like when you're buying a fucking puzzle for the house, and you go to springbok.com and see what kind of puzzles they have. And, it's just like, stereotypical New England cottage A, stereotypical New England cottage B, feel the flowers, Coca-Cola.
I know. Nothing beats that analog sense of time and date, though. And, we have the date right here on my MacBook on the upper right, and then you have your phone, but you still have to check. And it's just nice to have a calendar right there on the wall. And then you have that beautiful Scotland scenery. Oh,
it's beautiful, man. One of my favorite podcasts, Stone Age Gamer, Chris from that show, has saved his Nintendo calendars from like the 1990s. And when the calendar, when it lines up, he just reuses that calendar. So I think he just hung up the calendar from 1992 because the days and dates are exactly the same. He's got fucking Yoshi on his wall and Mario and stuff. Like, that's the way to go, man. I wish I kept all my old Star Trek calendars. I had all the starships and stuff. Oh, man.
Nerd.
I mean, yes, but... Well, Happy New Year, man. It's good to talk to you. We had a short break. What have you been doing?
Likewise, man. Happy New Year. It almost doesn't feel like a new year because everything's still exactly the same. So for all the folks thinking that everything was going to change, not yet, my friends. But outside of that, I'm well, dude. I'm happy to be back. We both took a little bit of a hiatus from the show and just kind of life in general. And we've got a lot to talk about today. And I'm very well equipped with not only one, but two Zico coconut waters.
Man, so, I wish we can get a freaking... we got to get a endorsement from Zico coconut water over here, man. All I have is a regular bottle of water. It's blue. It's got an F on it for Fahrenheit. It's backwards in the camera because when I had the two monitors set up, the camera was on one of the monitors, and I didn't want to look like I was looking away from you when I was talking. So it's the only reason it's reversed, but... Trust me, it's an F.
Oh, Dave's already in here. Shit. It was a little quiet. Turn that mic up like 30%.
Stand by.
You need to move it back.
I will make some adjustments on my side. Thank you for the heads up on that, Giraffe. Go ahead, Will. Let's see what you sound like now.
Rafal Trewicki. Rafal Trewicki.
This is a wonderful sound check. We were doing all kinds of fancy last names for our sound check earlier. But
yes, yes, we were.
Anyway, first of all, shout out to the Twitch chat. He says it's not much better. All right, yeah, I guess move it closer, and we got to get you a pop filter, my friend.
Yeah, can't have those plosives.
I mean, I'm looking at my levels here. Keep talking for me, Will.
Testing 1, 2, not much better. Ha ha.
I'm wondering if this is doubling up my voice. Stand by.
All right.
This is fun. Check. 1, 2. All right. Will, give me another sound check, I suppose.
Sure. I have my Aliens and Final Fantasy and WWE calendars from the late 90s, early 2000s.
I know I just endorsed keeping things like that, but Dave, throw that shit out.
That's one thing that Drew wants you to throw out, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be responsible here, but here I have a wall of junk behind me. Anyway,
there's a lava lamp there from Spencer's Gifts.
Hey, that lava lamp came from Target, sir. So stand corrected.
Stand corrected.
Everybody, welcome to the podcast. I want to thank you for joining us as I continue to mess with the levels on the microphone here. You are listening to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. We are about to do our 2020 Game of the Year Awards. But
Mm.
before we dive into that, please check us out on the web at www.wdgrpodcast.com. That's our main hub for pretty much everything, including links to our Music Mondays, any articles that we may write, every single podcast that we've ever done, plus a link to our Discord room, which you should absolutely stop by and say hello in. And of course, our social media, which is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGR Podcast. It's at WDGR Podcast. There's a link scrolling across the screen as I speak. Just go to that and you'll be good. Will.
Let you know our stock.
Yeah.
Our stock prices.
Yeah, I should start putting like ticker symbols on the bottom there and see if maybe I can influence the markets or something.
NASDAQ in there. Yeah.
Will, you've been creative on your time off. How can somebody find those creative juices, your keyboardness?
Sure. SoundCloud.com/Will_gear.
I have been a lazy sack of shit. You can find me on Twitter at ScionStorm. So, so why don't we get started, man? We are going to do some game awards. Let's tell the listeners what to expect, please.
Sure. Yeah, we've had this in the works for a little while, and we kind of planned it before our short hiatus. And what we're going to do is our own unique game awards for last year. So we're going to be kind of mouthing off a bunch of crazy categories of best hairstyle and best music and some generic stuff, some silly stuff, and some unique things as well. But yeah, it's going to be the Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective Game Awards of 2020. And instead of doing Oscars or Academy Awards, we're going to be giving out Willies and Drewies. So as you can see, we're taking this very seriously.
This is serious business.
Serious business. But yeah, we're just going to kind of, rummage through the categories as we go and talk about some games, hand out these awards, and it's going to be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I mean, we have quite a few categories here, and we have limited time. This is going to be a longer show than normal, but we're not going to be here until midnight or anything.
No.
So, I think for the most part, we'll be kind of dishing these awards out and kind of moving on to the next one, with very little banter in between. But there's going to be some that are going to pop up as we go along where we're going to kind of dive in a little bit further than we usually do. So I think it's just kind of, go with the flow kind of thing. And of course, if you have any responses to any of these awards, please let us know in the Twitch chat. Let us know on social media if you're listening to this after the stream. And we would love to have you in our Discord room. I know I just plugged that, but I'm going to plug it one more time. God damn it. Swing on by our Discord room. Come hang out with us. It's a ton of fun. So.
Agreed.
So where should we start?
Oof. Man, we have a bunch of categories like we mentioned before. So I don't know, Drew. I mean, we could jump right into best hairstyle, or we could just kind of skip around. What do you think?
Best hairstyle. Let's do it.
All right. What do you got?
Oh, I think this is an easy one. Cloud from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah. I mean, so tell me why.
I mean, as a bald man, I envy those luscious blonde spikes. Like, they are just wonderful. But, in all seriousness, though, I think just the nostalgia of seeing that hairstyle on a screen again in glorious high definition has just been absolutely wonderful. I do still want to play the game. I have not picked up FF7 Remake yet. I would like to. I'm waiting for a little bit more free time and a lower price. But
yes,
eventually I'll pick it up. And
I'm sure it's going to drop to like 20 or 30 eventually.
I've seen it at 30. I'm kind of waiting for 20 to 25. I'm absolutely being a cheap ass gamer with that. But I already, based on what I played of the demo, I already had some trepidation with the game. I really just don't feel comfortable paying full price.
No, that's fair. We've definitely discussed it enough, and I think that's a good move for you. Because I don't know if you're really going to love it. You might, but I think it's too chancy,
right.
to kind of pull the trigger at 40 or even 30. So I think 20 to 25 is going to be your bet.
Yeah, I think so too. And eventually I'll put some time aside for it. There's just too many other games that I need to play first. Like, I think if I played FF7 Remake before I played God of War, I would probably get murdered.
Yeah, probably.
So, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I had Cloud Strife as well, really for obvious reasons. I mean, just look at his hair, Drew. I mean, how could you not love it at first sight? I mean, this is a hairstyle that we all kind of grew to love. And I mean, let's just talk about how many bottles of LA Looks were probably
Oh
used to get
God, that is a
Dragon Ball Z
flashback.
special. I mean, dude, they should have had like a limit breaker special move for just his hair to like stab somebody.
Oh yeah, I mean like fucking tornado headbutt or something, right?
It just would have been so funny if it was a limit breaker. It would have been so ridiculous.
Well,
But yeah,
there's always time, based on the sequel whenever that comes up.
right.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Cool. So that's best hairstyle.
Yep, our first Willies and Drewies go to Cloud Strife.
Oh my gosh. Like we said, folks, very serious here.
Very, very
No
serious.
laughing. Next for categories, we have best music of 2020 for a game.
What do you have for this one?
I'm going to have to go with FF7 Remake. Really just for obvious reasons. I mean, it's a stunning recreation of what was and still is an incredible soundtrack to an incredible game. Every track, I think, was really reborn with care and kind of injected with that sort of modern orchestral sound that we kind of know and love now. I found that it was really boldly familiar and sort of faithful to some of the best themes in video games ever. These are very memorable tracks. And I mean, that battle theme, I mean, dang, dude, dang.
Yeah. The music in that game is just, even 20 years ago, was just stunning.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it was just a bunch of like MIDI files and stuff back then and a little bit of orchestral work. But, I mean, this just bang up job, hands down.
Yep. I need to check that soundtrack out on its own, outside of the game itself.
You definitely do.
This one should seem fairly obvious, I think, but I'm going to have to give my Drewie to Doom Eternal and Mick Gordon for his excellent guitar work and just sampling and programming and everything about that game. I had some serious problems with the game overall. The music was not one of them. I mean, this guy fucking put together a heavy metal choir. And on surface, that sounds like really ridiculous, but in the context of the game, it works. Just to hear like these like kind of tubing like growls and chanting and very low bassy kind of tones, and then when you're in the middle of a firefight, you can hear the choir kind of kicking in the background. But it's not like so obvious that it takes away from the game. It's not cheesy sounding. It is just wonderfully effective. He remixed some of the classic tracks from 2016 Doom with a very slight amount of change, and just I think churned out a wonderful soundtrack to a game that a lot of people really loved and a lot of people didn't. And it's been a very divisive game, but the music has never been one of those things that fans have been divisive about. It's just a shame that there was some controversy behind the scenes regarding the actual release of the soundtrack itself. It was promised as a pre-order bonus, and Mick Gordon was unable to finish mastering some of these things in time. And yeah, there was some stones thrown. It's kind of a shitty situation. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but it could have been handled better by all parties involved.
I remember that, and I agree. Whenever I think of Mick Gordon, I think about that appearance that he made on the Game Awards. I think it was last year. It might have been last year, or maybe it was some award show this year, but he was on some kind of award show, and he was running around with his guitar, going crazy, and it was really cool to see, because playing while running like that is no small feat.
It is very difficult. I think that was from a couple years ago. It certainly wasn't this year, but I know what you're talking about. And
it was probably for the other Doom 2016.
Yeah, I want to say that he did that performance sometime in 2017 or maybe 2018.
Sure.
But Advent Portal chimes in. He says, I think oddly enough, Genshin Impact was the most memorable for 2020 for me. I have not heard the soundtrack for that game, but I've heard wonderful things about the game itself, especially considering it's a freemium game. One of these days, maybe I'll give it a chance. I'm trying not to get into that freemium pull if I can avoid it.
It looks good from a visual perspective.
And it's playable on mobile and PC. I don't believe it's available on console, but maybe somebody in the chat can clarify that for us.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. All right, so it's on PS4. All right, well, there you go. Huh. Pat M 1987 says I played a good amount of Genshin Impact without hitting the pay part. That's good to hear. Thank you for letting us know, Pat M. I appreciate that. One of these days, I'll try to find some time and figure out what the deal is with that, I guess. So,
yeah, it's amazing how many videos are out there saying like, do not play this game.
Really?
And it's for the monetization aspect behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to know what you're getting into. I'm certainly guilty of spending money on mobile games. I spent quite a bit of money on Star Trek Timelines. I don't regret it. I had a lot of fun with that game, but you got to know when to walk away. And, I think it took me a little bit longer to walk away than it should have, but I still had fun with it. Mm-hmm. Anywho, let's move on. Let's jump over to, I'm going to jump down the list a little bit, Will. Let's go to Best Art Direction, shall we?
Sure.
What do you have in that one? Oh, maybe I shouldn't have picked this one. Because we just seem to be hitting the same game. Go ahead, man.
So we're going to do it?
Yeah, do it. It's too late now.
Okay. I mean, here's like another toss-up, right? Like, I mean, this Willie is going to have to be decided between The Last Guardian and FF7 Remake. It's tough because the art direction with FF7 Remake just being, I mean, near perfect, quite frankly. It's kind of hard to decide between the two of them. Because The Last Guardian, on the other hand, is like a watercolor painting that's coming to life as you're playing it. So even though that's not a game from 2020, I put that on the list. But I'd have to say, ultimately, the Willie is going to have to go to the FF7 Remake. It's like the third time I've mentioned this game, but it's too strong of a contender, man. I mean, the plate, Drew, the plate in Midgar above you, enough said. I mean, it's just everything they did with the characters just was masterful in my opinion. Very, very faithful.
I think the art direction in that game was truly strong and very sparky, if I recall. So
yeah, that's true.
But it was it was a good looking game. It was a really good looking game. And just a quick reminder, if anybody is tuning in and missed it at the top of the show, we are counting games that we played this year, not necessarily games that were only released in 2020. So Will talking about The Last Guardian is a game that, he played in 2020. Just because our backlogs are so vast, we don't necessarily play all the newest games. So Advent Portal does point out Ghost of Tsushima being so well done as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few there that I could have chosen, so I had to go with what meant, I think, the most, because I haven't spent a lot of time with Ghost yet.
I'm going to go with Spiritfarer for my Drewie for Best Art Direction.
Good choice.
What a gorgeous game. And, I remember seeing the teaser trailer for this game at some presentation. I don't remember which one it was. Spirit Bear.
I saw that come through. I'm like, what?
Oh man. Yeah, I don't
I don't think I'm going to be able to unsee that now.
He broke me. Yeah, so Spiritfarer, I don't recall which show it was, if it was E3 2019 or Gamescom or one of those things, right? But I saw the trailer for it and I was immediately hooked. The graphics are very cartoony, doesn't really do justice as far as description goes. Like, everything has just a very punchy outline to it as far as the characters go. They stand out very vividly, but then the backgrounds are very beautiful. The everything just seems whimsical and nautical at the same time. And man, it's just an absolutely gorgeous game, completely different than Final Fantasy VII. One of my favorite games of the year, and I just think probably when I think of art direction, I think of like not just how it looks, but how everything looks together. And I think Spiritfarer just nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an artsy looking game, period.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say about that. But
no, that's good enough.
Yeah, man. Drewie goes to Spiritfarer.
Drewies and the Willies, Jesus Christ.
I bet you. I bet you never thought that you would be saying the word Willies over and over again.
Never. And mind you, for everyone tuning in right now, this was not my idea.
I'll take the blame. I don't care. I'm a child. Whatever.
Jesus. Oh, man. So did we get that one checked off?
Yes. You're up. Your choice.
All right. Let's go with best story. What do you have there?
Oh, best story. Good choice, man. I got to go with the first Last of Us game.
Okay.
That game, and I struggled really between The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, but the Drewie's got to go with the first game because that was a game that I had written off for years, and I finally discovered it in 2020, and it had such a profound impact on me, especially the way it ended. Just a tremendous story from top to bottom. Really made just feel for the characters that were involved. And, I almost gave it to Last of Us Part 2, but I felt like the story of the first game just had a little bit more impact on me than the second game did. The second game kind of went on a little bit longer. Yeah, I have to agree with you, Advent Portal. The first Last of Us had such an amazing story, 100%. And I'm super excited for the upcoming show that they're, I think it's still moving forward on HBO.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I mean, just what an amazing tale of a man who wants nothing to do with this little girl, who lost his daughter and basically, being forced into circumstance and just coming around full circle, loving her like she's family, even though she's not his. It was a wonderful story. Just an amazing game. I'm glad I played it. I'm absolutely glad I played it.
Likewise, man. I couldn't agree with you more. I actually almost had to give my Willie to that game as well. I had to do it. I was sitting here thinking about it. I was like, should I say this? Should I be a child?
Yes, we are children.
5? Yes, I'm 5.
We're children, damn it.
We're children tonight. But no, seriously, Jesus Christ. It's such a good game. Such a good story.
It is.
I would say Last Guardian. I think this one was probably coming for the folks that have been listening to me kind of waffle on about this game for a while now. It was probably expected. This is a game that almost got tabled out of frustration and a lack of clear incentive, but ultimately it sort of rapidly gained my respect in the second half of the game. And I awarded it best story due to the bond that, kind of grows slowly between you and Trico. I was going to say like the boy and Trico, but it's more you and Trico because you lose touch with the boy in a way and it becomes just you and your bond grows with him more so than the boy.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It's powerful. It's memorable. It's just genuine.
Right.
The bond becomes genuine, and there's a unique story within some of its sort of predictable nature as well, because I kind of compared the story to being kind of generic, sort of like Avatar. It has those sort of elements, but there is something also really weird sort of within that. And I think that's where it's a little bit, it kind of breaks the norm a little bit. And I really hope that people can experience this game the same way that I did, because I think there's something really special that unfolds in the last, like, I'd say like 3-4 hours.
I don't think I've ever seen you do an about face on a game so violently than you did with The Last Guardian, because I'm
still shocked.
Yeah, I'm completely floored because we had talked about the game offline and online, in the show and everything, and on multiple occasions you just ran this game down, and then. And then just one day you sent me a message and it was like, I've beaten the game and I have thoughts. And you just blindsided me with your opinion.
And trust me, I wanted to give it all to you then and just kind of tell you like, hey, like this game meant a lot to me, but
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to savor that for the show and have it be like a genuine surprise
Yeah, and it was. It absolutely was.
for everyone, really.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Sure.
Why don't we go to best gameplay? Best
Cool.
gameplay for games that we played in 2020. Go ahead, Will.
God of War. Another game that I think is kind of predictable coming from me, but for very good reason. I mean, let me just start by saying that the fact that you can recall your Leviathan axe in this game just immediately deserves a Willie for gameplay. It's just so, it feels so good, and they put so much effort into making that one mechanic feel so incredible to actually perform. And it was just like the combination of those sort of battle tested controls and that sort of stellar gameplay really created like that sort of perfect marriage of sort of excellent combat and that sort of sense of true immersion. Unlike anything else I think that I played for, I would say, probably like the past like few years. It's clear that there's a huge focus on gameplay due to the fact that there was quite a sort of major departure from the gameplay that's found in the previous iterations of God of War and then this one.
Right.
And I think that really shined. And I think a lot of people would agree that, just kind of controlling Atreus and having it be so seamless without sort of losing that sense of playing as Kratos was really something special. And there's no doubt that the Willie had to go to God of War for best gameplay.
Yeah, Killer Sirach chimes in as far as the axe throwing. It makes you feel like Thor each time. And yeah, by all accounts that I've seen, it certainly does seem that way. I think what appeals to me the most with the God of War reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it, PS4 God of War, is the fact that it is nothing else like the originals on the PS2 and the PS3. I just I've played them a little bit. Like I can't say that I've spent a long time with those games, but I've dabbled in them. And, they're hack and slash games just really aren't for me, I don't think, So I'm kind of curious because I understand this is just such a vast difference, right?
It is. And I think that's why we've pushed it your way so much, because it really is wildly different than the other ones. The other ones, the controls are weird. Like to roll, you have to hit like R2 and stuff. And the perspective's totally different. Overall, the gameplay is just, it's much more like Shadow of the Colossus in some ways, because the bosses you have to fight, you have to climb them, and there's just different mechanics that are happening. And with God of War 2018, they left some of that stuff, but ultimately it's just way more accessible.
Right. As far as best gameplay for me, I'm going to have to give the Drewie to The Last of Us Part 2. Very strong, tight gameplay. We had some complaints with The Last of Us Part 1, and I think they addressed those complaints and really refined the system. They gave you options as far as crafting goes and which items you wanted to pursue, crafting more versus others. I think that just everything about that game just felt tighter, more responsive, felt modern. It didn't feel wasted. It didn't feel like there was anything. I don't think there was anything that they could have made better than they already did. I don't have any complaints about about that game as far as the gameplay goes.
Very polished. I mean, even though I played a small segment of it, I mean, it doesn't take long to realize that.
Yeah, it is very polished, and even when it comes down to the differences between Ellie and Abby, they both play very different styles, and I think the controls reflected that wonderfully.
Yeah, and just the gameplay in itself is so suspenseful that even though it's kind of terrifying, it's thrilling, and there's very few games that can kind of capture that same tension the way that The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 do.
Absolutely. All right, next one.
Your pick. Let's see what else we got here. My computer should not be slow.
Puxor says he's still reeling from Hypnospace Outlaw not getting best art direction. I've still not played that, so I apologize, Pux.
Let's go with best voice actor performance.
Best voice actor performance. Okay. So I kind of went back and forth on this one, man.
What you got?
I got to give an honorable mention to Ashley Birch for her work in After Party for the character of Sam, but ultimately the Drewie has to go to Deborah Wilson, who played Sarah in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Okay.
And
Why?
I know you haven't gotten too deep into that game yet. I don't know if you've met Sarah yet, but she brought such gravitas to your typical fallen Jedi. And when I say fallen Jedi, I kind of mean like fallen angel kind of thing, right? What a tremendous performance. And the way the graphics in this game are set up too, it's like they did facial captures as well. So it looks like her in the game, and she's just given this tremendous performance that just is filled with sorrow and regret, but fire and hope and desire for better things to come. Just really drew me into the game, and a tremendous game as a whole. I think her performance grounded it in a wonderful way.
Well, that's interesting, and I think that's a really good review of Deborah. I mean, I really, it just kind of makes me want to play Fallen Order even more.
Yeah.
A game that I have been slacking on a little bit, and the characters and the voice acting I can already tell are pretty top notch. So there's no doubt that I'm sure when I meet, is it Seer?
Seer, yes, Cere.
Seer. Okay.
And she's going to become essential for helping your character find his way.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, her list of accomplishments as an actress is pretty impressive. She goes back to Mad TV. She was one of the stars of that show for many years, but she's gotten into voice work recently, and she's done quite a bit in that space. Extremely talented, very talented woman.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of her, but I mean, granted, a lot of these voice actors you haven't really heard of unless it's like Nolan North.
Right. That's true.
Who's in everything.
That's very true.
I went with Troy Baker for The Last of Us Part 1. Really kind of hands down here because, I mean, there really is no competition with Troy unless you are Nolan North, in my opinion. I mean, he's just that good.
Yeah.
And as Joel, he's just delivers an unforgettable performance. I mean, anybody who's played Part 1 knows that, like you said before, he's such a broken character, a broken man, and dealing with loss and survival. And there's a lot of grit in his performance. And I think it really shows. And even in his voice, like you can actually hear that there's damage there. There's sadness. And I think a good voice actor can really portray that stuff well, just based off of a voice.
Yeah.
And he's very endearing too. Like you end up really kind of growing close to him, and you feel for everything that he's going through. And he really is like a chameleon in a lot of ways, Troy Baker too. Like, I mean, everything that I've heard him do is just so different. And sometimes you can tell it's him, but sometimes you can't. And that's always a good sign of a good voice actor. So for me, the Willie goes to Mr. Baker for The Last of Us Part 1.
Saikoro is dropping some knowledge in the Twitch chat right now. He says Baker was also Higgs in Death Stranding, and drops a fact: 99% of Baker's games feature a guitar. Baker does play, by the way. There is some clips of him performing some of the songs from The Last of Us. So those are worth checking out.
Yeah. Yeah, he also plays Ocelot in Metal Gear Solid 5 and does a real bang-up job with him.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't really know much about him until The Last of Us, but absolutely tremendous talent for sure.
Yeah, I think it was his breakout. I think that's why he kind of, sort of hit the spotlight when that game came out.
Do you remember that time that we looked into getting a cameo from him for the show?
Oh yeah. I still think about that. And I remember I was like, oh dude, I'm going to do this right now. And then I found out it was like, I don't know, like $600 or it was some like wildly expensive price to get him for
absurd.
Like 3 minutes. And I was like, you know what? We're going to have to stick to this extra from like The Sopranos if we're going to be able to afford this.
But you know what? Maybe we can
listen to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. I was on The Sopranos. The fuck is this guy?
We'll just have to get a Kickstarter going so that we can afford his cameo fee.
Yeah, it was pricey. And I remember Lauren walked by and she goes, "If you do that," and I'm like, "I'm not doing anything. I was just looking."
Oh my God.
I did think about it though. I thought about putting it on a credit card. I was like, "This is ridiculous. I
Oh
can't
my
do this."
God. Yes. Just got to draw the line
Paying
somewhere,
off
man.
his voice with minimum payments.
Yeah, right. Let's go to best NPC. What do you think?
Sure.
Who do you got?
Let's see who I have here. Oh man, here we go again. Tifa from FF7 Remake. I initially was going to go with Barrett or Wedge from FF7 Remake because they're really memorable, but I went with Tifa on sort of second thought because controlling her was just an absolute pleasure, man. I mean, her punches, kicks, and combos just feel so good to perform. And when you tie that sort of greatness in with the new battle theme music, you just kind of get that sort of concrete marriage for life. And man, it's almost like they emphasize sound effects with her. Like when you punch and you kick enemies, you just really hear it. It has like almost a sort of fake sound, but like a good fake sound. I don't know. It's almost like she's wearing like boxing gloves, but she's not. She's just wearing like her little brass knuckles or her like little leather gloves. And she's just so light and fast. And when you're playing Cloud and you're controlling Barrett and some of the other slower characters, they just don't feel as good. And it's because that's just not their place. But they did a really good job with Tifa, and she's got some just really cool moves. As far as like just being an overall NPC, she was all right, but I still had to give her the Willie. I still had to give her the Willie because I didn't even mean to make it funny that time. I didn't even mean to do it, but she still had to be awarded a Willie. Oh, God, it's still fucked up. It's still fucking gross. She still had to get that award, all right, for best NPC, and I'll just leave it at that before I eat my own words here.
You mentioned that they emphasize the punches and kicks in the remake, and that's really good because in the original they emphasize something completely different. So I'm glad to see that
That's true.
they've
now that you remind me.
Yeah, kind of broadened the character's perspective at this point. I'm going to give my Drewie to Jackie from Cyberpunk 2077. My time with Cyberpunk has been fairly limited for a number of reasons. I just haven't had the time to like really sit down and dive into too much of the game lately. Just with holiday stuff and work, I've just been fairly distracted. And that's the kind of game that I want to, when I'm going to sit down and play, I want to put a couple hours in distraction free. And I haven't had that.
Yeah.
But Jackie has a very major role in the very beginning of the game. And unfortunately, you do part ways with him at some point. I'm not going to go into details what that's like. But his character just feels so organic. You feel like you're talking to your best friend when you're going on missions with him. And you get to know him. You get to know his family through dialogue. His story is incredible. And just a tremendous experience with him in only a few hours. It's amazing how when somebody puts their mind to it and writes a good character and gives a good voice performance for the same character, you can make somebody feel real, feel alive. And I definitely think they succeeded with Jackie.
That's cool. There does seem to be a lot of really cool characters in that game. When I watch Damien stream almost daily, he's been playing Cyberpunk. I know Keanu's character. What's his name? Like Johnny Silversmith or something like that?
Silver Gun, Silver Hands,
yeah,
Silver something.
He seems pretty cool.
John Wick.
Yeah, but most of the characters that you encounter, just based on what I see, they all seem interesting. Like the writing that's been put into them seems pretty well curated.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be two different types of characters in Cyberpunk. Well, three, really. You have your city walkers who just, utter random phrases and are pretty much nonsense. And then you have your side story characters who have an appearance briefly and then you never see them again. And they have a decent amount of writing going into them, but nothing crazy. And then you have your main NPCs that have some sort of an overarching story arc. And those are the ones that there's a ton of time and effort put into. definitely worth checking out. But as far as like one of the kind of like side story dudes, there was this one guy who had a had a fucking implant for his dick, and
Jesus.
it went rogue on him, and gave him all kinds of issues. So
I can only imagine.
yeah, it was something else. But yeah, Killer Rock says Keanu is either always a Johnny or a John. Pencil Burn, City Walkers have the worst dialogue. They seem like cardboard cutouts. Yes, they do. Um, and Advent Portal chimes in on the crotch mission. He says it was his fave. I don't know if you should be admitting that in public, my friend. All right. What's the next one, Will?
Let's take a look. Why don't we go with Best Universe?
Oh, okay. I have
What
to.
do you have here?
I got to go with The Last of Us for this one.
Part one?
Well, just in general, the games as a whole, 1 and 2.
Sure.
And I'm assuming there's going to be a third part at some point. You know, it really draws me into this world of all these different factions. I adored the early seasons of The Walking Dead, and this feels a lot like The Walking Dead, but better. You know, you have a lot of people that are just doing whatever they can to survive. You have people that are banding together trying to make life, find a cure, all these different things. I did like the farmhouse. I know it was a slow season, but it was necessary character development. And so, yeah, but I really didn't stop watching The Walking Dead until probably the last 2 seasons, I want to say. So I stuck with it a long time, way past a lot of people did. But yeah, it does. The atmosphere does make it hard to play. I agree, Saikoro, but I think the world that they've established, as depressing as it is, just really draws me in. And I'm endlessly fascinated by seeing abandoned buildings, and especially when you see like a landmark that you recognize that is no longer accessible. So Epic Outro chimes in. He thinks the atmosphere is the best part, and I have to agree.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes time. You know, we talked about both games, especially the first one, quite a bit about the atmosphere and how it's very bleak and barren, and it's like this sort of, you know, apocalyptic wasteland, which it really is. You know, it's full of abandoned buildings, like you mentioned, and it's very sort of drab.
Right.
But, you know, as you kind of progress through it, it does get captivating in some weird shape or form. It's has a strange effect, and there's a pull that does happen. And I agree with you. I think it does deserve a Drewie. I would probably give it a Willie, but
Yeah.
fuck's sake, man. I feel like I can't say it without just like thinking terrible things.
Well, I mean, when you put a Willie with Tifa, yeah. But you know, like there's quite a bit of time spent in. I guess it's the Seattle Aquarium. I'm not sure what the exact name is, but there's an aquarium that they spend a significant amount of time in that they've, you know, basically set up as some sort of a base, and just the atmosphere in how they've taken this abandoned building that was meant for kids to learn about fish and turned it into a habitable environment with doors that are blocked off and paths that are just, you know, guiding you down certain hallways to make it more difficult to get in. And even the brief amount of time that you spend in the football stadium, where you have this entire city, essentially, you know, people eating, sleeping, working, living in a football stadium. It's a functioning city. Just truly amazing to see.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Like if you take the abandoned university in Colorado in the first game, it's like that sort of effect that you have when you're a teenager. You go to like an abandoned building and you're scared and you're thinking, you know what, let's get out of here. But there's that part of you that's like really curious. And that segment too, with all like the leaves blowing in the wind because it's fall in terms of season, it's really cool to just kind of explore this abandoned college. And you're kind of afraid because you know that there's going to be some hunters and runners and clickers and all that kind of good stuff. But at the same time, you just want to explore. So I think it's worth saying that universe is worth exploring.
Yeah, and I want to see more. I want to see what else it can do, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the Space Museum too. Yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. Yeah, that was Pencil Burn chimed in with that, the Space Museum stuff. that was
Is that from part 2?
It is from part 2, and that is just like absolutely heartbreaking. Just truly wonderful stuff. So I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll have to YouTube it or something.
You need to play the fucking game.
I knew I was going to open that door. I was like, if I tell him I want to YouTube it, he's just going to tell me to play it. So I probably shouldn't.
Don't YouTube it. Don't ruin the experience for you. I don't care if it takes you 2-3 years. Don't ruin that experience. When you're ready, play the game.
You know what's funny? It's funny you mentioned that, because I've actually sort of subconsciously avoided looking at anything on that game, and I think it's because I know eventually I will play it.
And I can't wait for you to.
For me, fuck's sake, FF7 Remake.
Another one.
Yeah, Midgar. I mean, I could really just drop the mic right there. It's like every area in that game is just so well presented, and it's so absorbing for the player that you really kind of become a part of its universe. And I'd say the slums are generally where you spend most of your time the first half of the game, and I found those areas to be the most memorable, even though it's like depressing to know why the people are living there, and they're living below the plate, basically below the wealthy, and it's really depressing. But at the same time, the music and the amount of like little side quests and the miniature battles that you face, and just kind of the conversations you have with all these NPCs, everything just feels really alive. And I remember when I did a review on the game, I said that it had a pulse. And that pulse is just, you could put your finger anywhere in that world and you're going to get that pulse wherever you go. And to be able to look up and look at that plate that I talk about so much, I just found it to be so, the scale was just so perfect. And it just seems so large. And in the first game for PS1, everything was obviously smaller. Because it had to be.
Right.
So to take that world that was so quaint and so compact and sort of compressed, and then kind of blow it up to that scale, I felt was really special. And overall, just the entire universe of that game is just a sort of joy to explore.
Yeah. They kind of it's interesting because it's two very different feelings. I think the first game, whether it was because of design or because of limitations, it did feel very compressed. And the remake certainly does feel much more massive on this just huge scale. So.
Yes, it's a little bit linear still at times, but the fact that you can just more freely explore more easily is just something that is really worth experiencing.
Yeah, definitely. Man, one of these days I'm going to find some time to play it. So.
You will. It'll probably happen this year, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do. I'm committed to beating the games that I've started, though. So Cyberpunk is going to take a while.
It will.
Why don't we go to funniest character next?
Sure.
Who's the Willie on this one?
The Willie's going to go to Barrett from FF7 Remake.
Did you play any other games, Will?
I did. And I'm starting to think like, shit, did I give an award to anything else? But I had to be honest, man. Like I did a lot of research on giving these awards out beforehand, and it was hard. No, it's fine. It's totally justifiable, but it was hard deciding because I wanted it to really be fair and I didn't want to be too selective. And, even though FF7 was really a slog in the end, there was just so many good aspects about it. And, a 2020 game, I went Barrett because here I was going to go with Wedge, but Wedge is not as memorable as Barrett, and you spend a lot more time with Barrett in the game. And just him sort of reciting the victory fanfare, like the da 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 da, like he does that a lot in the game.
Does he?
Oh yeah, and it was like the first time I heard it, I was like, this is hilarious. Like I can't believe they did that. Because they left out that particular tune in the game.
Okay.
So I don't know why, because it was amazing, but that no, you know what? I don't know why they left that out, because I was going to say that it was only playing in the menu screen when you would like finish the battle in the PS1 version.
Okay.
But as far as I remember, when you completed a battle in the first game, you could hear it starting before you entered the menu system. So whatever. But they left it out. Barrett faithfully will kind of chant it every now and again after a battle. And the more time you spend with him, the funnier he just gets. Like he just says
Mm.
crazy things that are just very off the handle, and everyone knows that he's pretty much a loudmouth and just kind of goes off the handle at any moment. So I had to give it to him, man. He was funny, and a lot of the games that I play don't really involve funny characters per
Right.
se. So it just had to go to him.
Well, I mean, you got to go where your heart is, man.
Yeah,
You definitely got to go where your heart is. So, and he was pretty funny in the original game too. I just don't have that point of reference.
yeah.
I wanted to give my Drewie to the funniest character of Sam, who was played by Ashley Birch in the game After Party. This is a
Okay.
indie game by the developers of Oxenfree, which is a game that I'm hoping to play this year as well. Ashley Birch is just wonderful. She has a role in one of my favorite TV shows, Mythic Quest. But she's also a very prolific voice actress. She is responsible for the voice of Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn, and she brings such life and just energy to the characters as she plays. And Sam is your guide through the afterlife as you're trying to figure out how you can get a meeting with Satan so you can outdrink him. And it's absolutely hysterical, and her dialogue is wonderful, and her delivery is amazing. If you ever have an opportunity to play the game, it's short. You could do it probably in an afternoon if you really tried. It's a story-based game. Your choices do have an impact on your ending, but just truly wonderful. Just a joy to play, and I loved every minute of it. Yeah, she did the voice of Aloy, Evan Portal. Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Why don't we go with let's go with a game released in 2020 that we wanted to play but couldn't possibly play.
Yeah, so I couldn't think of a better title for this one, but I really wanted to have a way to award a game that there was absolutely no possibility I'm ever going to play it, and I'm going to give that award to Half-Life Alyx.
Okay.
It's a VR game, and we don't often talk about the Half-Life franchise on this show, but it is one of my top 5 franchises in gaming. I was absolutely obsessed with that game, Half-Life 2, when it came out. I played the shit out of Half-Life 1 and Team Fortress Classic back on my dial-up computer when that game was out. So, I've had a Steam account as long as Steam has been around because of Half-Life 2. It launched with that game, and I adore the Half-Life franchise. So I've been waiting for Half-Life 3 for as long as I can remember, and it's a running gag on the internet that it was never going to come out. Well, Half-Life Alyx was basically Half-Life 3. It was Valve's way of telling a story in that universe, but using it as a means to further advance virtual reality. And I commend them for doing that, but the barrier to entry for VR is so fucking expensive.
It really is.
And I don't know if the game is available on like the Oculus Quest or any of those things. And even if it were, I'm not sure I would go for it because they're really pressuring Facebook integration now, and I want nothing to do with that. So if I can ever cough up about $4,000 to buy a VR rig and a computer that can handle it, then yeah, I'll play Half-Life Alyx. But until then, I guess it's just going to have to remain out of reach.
Yeah, I wasn't comfortable with that Facebook integration either when I had the Quest 1, I guess, because the Quest 2 is out now. And once I found that out, I was like, ugh, like why can't this just be its own thing?
Yeah,
Everything has to be integrated now, but
it's
whatever. But
it's
no, I
scuzzy.
agree with you, man. It is scuzzy, and we talked about the VR thing before, and you're right. It's like a $4,000 rig to get this game looking the way that it's supposed to look, and it's just not worth it right now.
No, I can't justify the cost. There's just no way in any universe that makes sense for me, unfortunately, and it breaks my heart. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we should summon Tom because he has a pretty decent rig, and he also has the Rift with all the sensors and cameras and all that crazy stuff. So
yeah, so what we're gonna do then is we're going to kick him out of his house for like I would say at least a weekend.
At least.
However long it takes me to beat the game, because once I start, I'm not stopping, and I'm going to beat it, and then he can have his house back. I'll feed the dogs and cats. I don't care.
Yeah, he's got a couple cats. You'll be fine.
All right, perfect. It'll be great. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Oh man.
How about you, man? What's your pick?
Demon Souls remake. Another predictable one, I'm sure, but for good reason. This is a game that I really cherish, and it was my sort of entry to the Souls series many years ago when I played it on the PlayStation 3. And I must have played it at least a handful of times, and I even made a sort of last appearance online the night that they shut the servers down, which was really kind of eerie and sad and strange, like just watching some of these sort of phantoms running around like these other players.
Right.
And I really thought, along with a lot of other folks, that this game was never going to make a return. We ended up sort of longing for a sequel or a remaster or remake, and thankfully the remake was born this year.
Right.
And I would have loved to play it day one, but we all know the fiasco with acquiring a PlayStation 5.
Which continues to this day.
Still continues. I haven't checked in forever because I truly gave up. But man, what a tremendous looking game. I mean, Blue Point, perfect studio to kind of be at the helm for this one. And I'm still very much looking forward to playing it. And I love the fact that you can change the camera angle too, which seems like everybody did that. Like when they debuted the trailers and stuff and the demos, the camera angle was a little bit closer. Like it was a third person, but it's like closer to the back of the character.
Okay.
And it looks like they have controls where you can set it to be more distant the way that the first one was. So
interesting.
Very, very excited to sink my teeth into that one, but it's probably not going to be until well into this year.
Do you think Lauren would be more upset if you bought a PS5 or Troy Baker's Cameo?
Definitely the Cameo.
Okay.
If she found out that I slapped that on a credit card or just had the nerve to even put it on a debit card, and she just saw like a $650 Cameo purchase on the Bank of America statement,
yeah,
that would definitely be a serious conversation.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Damien's right. We just got to wait till our birthday. Damien and I are notorious for always getting something pretty special on our birthday, which is the same date but not the same year.
That's
fun fact.
Just blows my mind that you guys have the same exact day.
Yeah, it was really weird when we found that out. I was like, "There's no way."
Well, at least I could say I'm part of the Gemini family. So
we just took a drink at the same time.
We
I
did.
knew that we were born to do this show together. That just sealed it.
Yeah, man.
Oh, shout out to Damien. Damien has had this drink many times. He absolutely loves it. Ice cold, Damien. Ice cold.
All right, they better be paying you.
Or what else we got?
Did you have something for best independent game? Because I have that on the list here.
Unfortunately, I didn't. And the reason being is I didn't play any independent game that came out this year or any independent game at all this year.
All right. Well, I'll give the Drewie then to Spiritfarer. And just Pencil Burn, just to clarify, we're giving it to games that we've actually played. And I haven't played Hades. Will, did you ever actually get Hades working?
I got it working on my MacBook, which I'm using right now for the show. And man, that fan was loud. Very loud. And it made me nervous, but it's the only way I can run it because I had this issue with some kind of like metal compatibility with my 2011 iMac, so I just wasn't able to run it on there. But I got it running. I played about 5 minutes just to make sure that everything was going to work. And then when the MacBook sounded like it was going to take off to the moon, I shut it down.
Gotcha. All right. So eventually you'll be able to circle back to that, and that's a game
Yes.
I too also want to play. I know it's available on the Switch. I don't think they've released it on any other consoles at this point other than PC. But again, back to Spiritfarer. This was a game that I had in contention for my game of the year. And I think it just fell a little short just because of the depth of the gameplay wasn't quite there. But this game made me feel things. It was a strangely perfect game for 2020 and all the turbulence that we've dealt with this year. But it brought me a sense of peace and relaxation, especially when I was at my most stressed. Just going and sailing the seas, looking for certain types of ore or certain types of wood, or trying to make a specific meal to make one of the spirits that you're carrying with you happy, and just taking your time. There was an achievement in the game for using the bus stops 50 times, and I actually had to grind that achievement out because I never use the bus stops. Those are like the quick travel method to get around the map. Every time I wanted to go someplace, I just went and clicked on it and just sailed there, and however long it took is however long it took. And I enjoyed every minute of playing that game. But it was also one of the saddest games I've ever played. You know, you're guiding the spirits to the afterlife and helping them find peace before they move on. And it is an incredibly powerful, touching tale that, you know, certainly brought a tear to my eye more than a few times. Very, very powerful game, a truly special game, truly wonderful game. And, you know, if it's not for everyone, especially, you know, considering what's been going on in the world, but I don't think it's a game that should be missed if you could play it.
I'm getting to that one this year. There's no question. And it's solely because of your reviews.
You won't be disappointed, but you have to come to the table understanding what it does and what it is. You know, it's very much I don't want to say inventory management. It's a farming game. You know, you're if you've ever played Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, shit like that, this is one of those types of games. You know, you need to make a house for one of the characters, right? And in order to make that house, you need 20 pieces of oak wood.
Sure.
You need 10 pieces of glass, and then you need marble. And you have to have those things in stock before you can build that item. So you have to go find them. And maybe you can't get some of those things right away because there's a physical barrier that your boat is not capable of crossing yet, be it like an ice shelf or deep fog or high winds. You know, there's 3 different sections that are kind of gated to kind of halt your progress until you complete certain story objectives. But it does give the game a nice progression, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of stop and take stock of what you have and what you need to accomplish. None of which is on a timer, by the way. You go at your own pace. If somebody tells you they're hungry, that's fine. They'll be fine. I mean, they're already dead anyway, so they're not going to die on you. But yeah, it's truly wonderful. And no, nobody has given a Woody to Animal Crossing New Horizons Killer Rock, because neither of us played it, because fuck Animal Crossing.
So, yeah, I'm pretty much with you on that one.
Yeah, that's not for me. Animal Crossing is a wonderful game for a lot of people. It's not a wonderful game for me.
Same.
So, most anticipated game of 2020.
Sure.
Drum roll, please.
Here's one I haven't said before: Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, man, I had to be fair. I was actually going to say Ghost of Tsushima for this one because there's no doubt that I was excited for that game. But when I thought about it carefully, I was like, what was I more excited for? And it was absolutely FF7. And it's just because I cherished the first game, just like many others across the globe. And you know, this game has been in development for 44 years. So to have it finally birthed in the spring of 2020 was really quite something. Like I said, in the same breath, Ghost of Tsushima was marketed very well. I mean, the first gameplay trailer was outstanding. And the last one, shortly before release, was really the yada breaking for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But to get close to living out our sort of internal fantasies of playing FF7 Remake were just too powerful to ignore. So I had to give the Willie to FF7 once again.
Nice.
What about you?
I had a honorable mention for Doom Eternal. I was super excited for that game. Doom 2016 was just one of my favorite games of the last generation, and I was really expecting more of the same. But it came out pretty early in the year, so you know, I think that anticipation kind of came and went pretty quickly. I got to give it to Cyberpunk 2020. 2077.
That one just went right over my head. I was like, you know what? 2020. Yep, got it.
I think I might have said that before too. But yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that I've been following for a very long time, and I'm not gonna lie, I got hyped up and caught up in the I got caught up in the hype of each delay and everybody just saying, "Hey, take your time, fix it, make it great, make it wonderful." Um, I've been fortunate enough to enjoy it on the Xbox Series X. I know there are a lot of people that are not as fortunate and have been having a ton of issues with it, and we'll talk about those shortly. But I was really looking forward to this game. I was super excited when it finally came out. I was totally on board with all the delays. I did not mind waiting for them. My hope was, delay the game, get it fixed, get it right. And unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. But I still think there's something positive that can come from it.
Well, I don't blame you, man. I mean, that game was highly anticipated.
Yeah. I mean, it's been in production for, 8 years at this point? 7 years, something like that. I think they announced it in 2013.
Crazy.
So, it's a long time to get people hyped. And they did a really good job with, releasing videos and updates. If you go on YouTube, look up Night City Wire. There's a ton of stuff. I could see Saikoro chomping at the bit to tell me all kinds of spoilers right now. So he's like, he must be twitching and getting like meat sweats or something.
Meat sweats.
I'm just busting you, man. I'm just fucking with you. But seriously though, man, it's they had their crowd in the palm of their hands, and I was one of them. So
I just wish it showed across the board, how special that this game is. I guess you could say is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's completely fair, because I know a lot of people are saying that it's very special now, and I think that's excellent. But man, I just wish it showed across the board.
Yeah, I think it's special if you have a PC that can push the game to its limits, or if you have an Xbox Series X and you're fortunate enough not to deal with any like major crashes. I've had a couple crashes where it's actually booted me out to the desktop on the Xbox, but it hasn't been as bad as people on the PS4 or the PS5. The PS5, when it crashes, you have to like rebuild the entire database. So,
oh my goodness,
it's pretty wild. Yeah,
that's absurd. I just want to acknowledge Killer Sirach mentioning the PS5 headphones. Just because I haven't tried them, but I did have the PS4. I think it was the Sony Gold wireless headset. And I swear by that thing, man. It was like $99. It used to go on sale for $80, and I wish I never got rid of it because it worked for the PS3 as well. But man, that was a really, really good wireless headset for being like a Sony product, something that kind of gets, marketed that way as like a Sony accessory. I'm not surprised the PS5 one is doing well.
And just a note too, there's a lot of chatter in the Twitch chat about the Miles Morales for the PS5, and I guarantee you, if I had a PlayStation 5, I would have played that game because Spider-Man for the PS4 was incredible. Will play it.
It's on my list. It is actually on my list.
It's so cheap right now, and it's worth it, and it is just a wonderful, wonderful game.
So here's my question.
Yeah.
So you have the PS4 version, right? And then I'm sure it runs better on the Pro, and then you have the remaster on PS5, correct?
Of the original game.
Yes.
That is my understanding. Killer Sirach could probably explain a little bit more about that than I could, but that's my understanding. So
I just want to make the right decision, because it sounds like I could scoop it up on PS4, but I don't know if I should be playing the remaster on PS5 later in the year.
Right. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference the remaster would make. But
I guess it probably depends on TV and all that stuff.
It would. I mean, I'm sure that's going to have something to do with it too. So, let's see here. Is it my pick or is it your pick?
It would be mine.
Okay.
And I think this one seems fitting. Biggest disappointment.
Yeah. I got to go with Cyberpunk 2077. Okay. Let's just be completely honest. They released a unfinished game, and there are a lot of people that have had great experiences with the game thus far. I am one of them, but I cannot deny the issues that they've been dealing with. Um, if you have a base Xbox or you have a base PlayStation, this game is unplayable. Full stop. There's no other way around it. And you can go check out the Digital Foundry videos or just go on any Reddit thread about Cyberpunk, and you're going to see a litany of people just absolutely frustrated with how poorly the game is running on those systems. Even the PS5, which theoretically should be handling this game as well as the Xbox does, is crashing. And it does have some graphical advantages and some graphical setbacks, but the game is crashing on people and causing us a full system database rebuild, which is time consuming. So you pop in that game, it crashes after an hour. Not only do you lose your save, but now you got to rebuild your PlayStation's database. That's not cool.
It's terrible. And it's terrible because we talked about this last time. The point that I made is a ton of people still have Xbox Ones and PS4s.
Right.
And the fact that you can't easily acquire a next-gen system to play this game at an optimum level is fucked.
And these games, and just a quick note too, Cyberpunk is not even running at an optimum level on these systems because those patches for the next-gen systems haven't hit.
Sure. So it just gets worse, really. I mean, I guess I'm sugarcoating it, but I mean, for the fact, that I'm a PS4 owner and I don't own a next-gen system, I can't get one. If I really wanted Cyberpunk, I'd be in a mess.
Yeah.
It's really tragic.
I'm kind of curious, morbidly, to pop it in my One X to see how it runs. But at the same time too, I'm afraid it's gonna set the system on fire. So.
You're gonna hear grinding or something.
Yeah, I mean that system gets pretty loud as it is, and if I'm playing a game in here, it gets warm as fuck. So, but yeah, I'm optimistic that they'll fix it. I think that CD Projekt Red has a ton of work to do, and they are determined to fix it and make it better and make it playable for everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing the next generation patches. But the reality is those were originally supposed to hit sometime in the first quarter of this year. And considering that they're focusing on fixing a game that is actually broken instead, I can't imagine I'm going to see that until the summer at the earliest.
Yeah, I'm seeing some banter down here about Skyrim and Fallout 3. I do know for a fact that Skyrim on PS3 was apparently a real mess. And the Xbox 360 version ran well. And then I don't think they ever fixed the PS3 version. I'm not really sure the history there, but I do know that the version on PS3 launch was definitely fucked.
I feel like patches to fix games were a little less common in the PS3 and Xbox days, 360 days. Not that it didn't happen, but now it's the de facto, because those games were still running off of the disc, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they were necessarily installing to the hard drive. Whereas with the Xbox One and the PS4, the disc was nothing more than a key. So you could literally install the disc and then they could just rewrite the entire code. It was a very different approach. So, what's your pick?
It would be Sayonara Wild Hearts, a game that actually came out in 2019. I thought it was this year as well, but I had to look because I wasn't sure. And I played it this year. It took, I don't know, hour and a half, if that. And without kind of waffling on too much about it, it just was a disappointment for me. It was a game that I had high hopes for based on some friends that kind of shoved it my way. And I was a little nervous going into it because I usually have pretty good instincts for, if I'm going to like a game or not. And there's something that I could never put my finger on about it that I just knew. I was like, that voice inside of me was like, Will, you're not going to like this game.
Yeah.
There are aspects that are that aesthetic was there that we've talked about, but man, it was just such a bizarre game. And I genuinely didn't like it. And that doesn't happen to me very often where I'm like, man, I really don't like this.
Yeah.
And that actually happened there. And it was really unfortunate. Granted, it was not expensive. Granted, it was only an hour of my time. But like I said, I really wanted to love it as much as Joe did and some other folks. And I guess it doesn't happen to me very often that I'll watch or play something that's highly, highly rated, and I dislike it so much. So I think that definitely had to get the Willie for the most disappointing game of the year.
Somehow I never beat that game. I don't understand how, because I feel like I played it for the same amount of time that you did. I must have gotten really close.
You probably did.
But like I don't feel quite as strongly about the game as you do, I don't think. But I do agree with a lot of your assessment. It just it was so hyped by so many people, and there was and I'm not trying to throw Joe under the bus here, but he did hype it quite a bit too, and I do value his opinion.
Of course.
And that game just missed the mark for me. I feel like they tried so hard to do too many different things without really fully committing to any of them. The soundtrack was awesome, but the songs were too short. The gameplay had some interesting loops, but just as you got into a comfort zone with one mode of play, it would flip into another. And it just seemed like it was all over the place. Like there was no focus. And I'm fine with different types of gameplay in a game. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't expect an entire gameplay to be the same, or the entire game to be the same if you have the ability to do multiple different things. But don't. I felt like I was playing a game that was on, ADHD. Quite honestly.
Yeah, I remember having like a weird, I don't know, like weird eye issues. Like I was sitting too close. That was probably part of it. But ultimately, my brain just felt very like irritated. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something about that game, man. It's just such an odd thing. And you're right. Like I think they missed the mark with the concept. There was a concept that was there, but they just didn't execute on it well. And
yeah.
I felt like it was a little bit too obscure, just for the sake of being obscure.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess we're going on to two of our final categories now. What is our personal game of the year, no matter what year it came out, for 2020? And we're I guess in a way we're kind of segmenting this to games that are exclusively prior to 2020 releases, if we think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you and I play so many games that are older that I think it would be a disservice to kind of just hone in on just the 2020 releases. So what's your game of the year for pre-2020?
Sure. This is going to be God of War 2018. I mean, hands down, this game was just triumphant for me, man. I mean, it encompasses everything good about games. Really had it all. It had gameplay, story, music, visuals, characters, everything. What impressed me the most was definitely the gameplay and the visuals. The world that you spend your time in is just so rich and mysterious, and this sort of idea of strengthening and developing this kind of closer bond with your son Atreus, teaching him to hunt, to fight, to kill, really special, really unique. And once you kind of feel like you're, and like not to mention this again, but I know I said it earlier, you're able to control Atreus in such a way where you don't feel like you're losing connection with Kratos. And I don't know how they managed to do that, but it really shows that Santa Monica spent a lot of time developing a sort of strong set of mechanics to pull that off. And the length of the game was just right at north of 20 hours or so. And that was a huge thing for me, because I felt like it was going to be too long at times, but the way that it kind of wrapped up was just right. I mean, the gameplay, dude, the gameplay is so good that you just want to create GIFs out of everything that you do. And I did find a guy on Twitter that was making a lot of them, and I was like, man, that's how I was actually able to sense that he was grimacing a lot with what you do. I mean, I could see it in the game, but when I saw it in the GIFs, I was like, man, the attention to detail is just second to none here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, man, just a crowning achievement in gaming, and it deserves the highest of Willies. It's absolutely my game of the year for a non-2020 game. Period.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and it won a ton of Game of the Year awards in 2018 when it came out. So it absolutely is deserving of the award 2 years later, I feel.
Yeah, it's a tremendous, tremendous experience, and I cannot wait till you get around to it. And I don't care if it takes 80 years. Well, we're not going to be around for that long. But
speak for yourself.
Okay, fair. But yeah, no, if it takes you a while, man, I don't care. I know you're going to get to it eventually. I know you're going to beat it. I know you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm just I'm looking at my PlayStation it's been moved into the game room, and I got this, like, you can kind of see it right there, that little comfy chair. I want to sit in that and play it.
Yeah, Pencil Burn here. He's getting me. You're getting me, dude.
Man, I got to give the Drewie to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Respect.
I began playing this game on my Series X when it came in. The EA Play became a part of Xbox Game Pass the same day that game, the same day that system got released. And man, it's not a next gen game, but it was just the most fun I've had with a game, I think, in a long time. I love Star Wars. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and this game felt like it was part of the Star Wars universe in every single possible way. From the story to the graphics to the animations and the transitions from one scene to the next, where they'll do the slide wipe. These little touches that you don't really pick up on unless you're watching the movies and like looking for them. They're all there. The sound effects are tremendous. The reflection of your lightsaber off of the dark surface is amazing. The style of the ships, the sounds that the enemies make, the banter that they have between each other when they're attacking you. The art design, as Saikoro just mentioned, is spot on. The companions that you have with you on your ship, and I'm trying to talk about this robustly without ruining the game for you, Will, because you're going to love this game. It's not perfect, but it's really, really good. And I've been fortunate enough to not experience any of the bugs that a lot of people were experiencing when the game first came out last year. I don't know if it's because of patches or because of the horsepower of the Series X. There were some glitches. It wasn't a perfect experience, but overwhelmingly positive. And I did finish the game while we were on our hiatus. And I'm thrilled to say that not only did I beat the game, but I didn't stress out about trying to 100% it, which would have just kept me from beating the game altogether. Sure. But just a wonderful story. I don't know if it's considered part of Star Wars canon. It should be. And I don't say that lightly, but I think it's on par with some of the better movies in the franchise, because we all know that Star Wars franchise has had its slips. This is just a tremendous experience from top to bottom. And, I don't often replay games, but I can see myself circling back to this, sometime from now.
Yeah, I've only played a couple of hours, but that lightsaber combat is just so empowering, and
it is
so fucking cool, man. There's just no other way to explain it. It's just cool.
And it's a real thrill kind of getting that rush that I know a lot of Dark Souls players get from conquering an enemy that they've struggled to beat. This game doesn't do that very often with like your normal grunts and things of that nature. But when you're facing a boss, you better believe it. They make you earn those kills, and it's worth it. It's epic. I remember some of those fights. There's some chatter in the Twitch about the worst, the level design being bad. I don't know if it is or it isn't. I don't really have a Dark Souls reference to compare it to, so I can't say that. It is kind of a bit of a headache getting around on some of these worlds, but it was never like too much of a frustration for me. I just kind of dealt with it and just went with it. So
yeah, it seems like the substance that's there, the content that's there, really kind of overshadows, perhaps some of those flaws.
I agree. Yeah.
Based on what I've seen. And
Saikoro is, acknowledging the double jump and the wall running, and wall running is just so incredibly badass, especially when you start upgrading and you're able to, reflect some gunfire and things like that. Your skills become quite awesome as the game goes on. So
love it.
Let's see here. We're at our final one. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's do it. So this is going to be our game of the year for 2020.
Yes, so we're sticking strictly with games that were released in 2020. You want to give it a go, Will?
Yeah.
The Willie goes to.
The Willie goes to, drum roll. You'll never guess. Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh!
Oh! In the end, man, look, sure, it was a 40-hour plus slog to wade through, but ultimately it ended up being an incredible experience for someone who is a huge fan, like many others, of the original game. Like I've said so many times before, the music, the gameplay were just massive highlights for me.
Right.
As you know, the gameplay took some time to get used to at first, because it was such a departure from the traditional turn-based combat that we're used to, and perhaps we're expecting with this remake as well. But after about an hour or so, you really kind of begin to fall in love with it. To really recreate a universe like this is no small feat. And what they brought to the table was certainly more than faithful to the original, I think. Could have been shorter, of course, but everything else it had to offer really made up for that sort of end game slog.
Right.
The characters, the story, music, visuals, universe, and gameplay all really pack a punch that I think is really worth celebrating. Man, I could talk about this game for a while, and I did before on one of our previous episodes. I did a review on it. So for folks that have not listened to that, please do, because that's where you're going to get most of my banter about the game. But there's no doubt, man, that in the end, this was my game of the year. Please bring out the final Willie.
So your Willie goes to FF7 remake. My Drewie, my final Drewie of this show, is going to go to The Last of Us Part 2.
Nice.
That is my game of the year for 2020. And this one was a little difficult for me to come to terms with because I did have a very conflicted opinion of the game. If you go back and listen to the review that we had Epic Outro guest on, we kind of went back and forth. And I think Dave and I both felt very similar about the character of Abby. And there's been a lot of discussion with her and how she fits into the universe and whether or not you're either your Team Ellie, Team Abby, and they just had this like mortal death feud. And I'm still Team Ellie, right? But The Last of Us Part 2 made me feel ways about a video game that I've never felt about a video game before. And it's stuck with me. It's stuck with me since I've played it, since I've finished the game. I understand where the character of Abby is coming from. And again, I'm trying to be vague because you haven't played the game. But it's just like, it's oil and water in some respects. And yet in others, they're the exact same person. Man, it was a wild ride. Tremendous game from top to bottom. Amazing soundtrack, amazing graphics. It pushed the PlayStation 4 to the absolute limits, and I was playing on a base PS4, and it still looked amazing. I can only imagine what it would look like on the PS5 or even on the PS4 Pro.
Sure.
I do feel that the game was a little bit too long. I think it went on a little bit longer than it needed to. But I was along for the ride the entire time. And it was an exhausting game at times. It was a difficult game, emotionally draining very, very often. But it just, man, what a beautiful tragedy it was, It was just a
common theme here.
Yeah.
With this game. Like a lot of folks have a very similar review with The Last of Us 2. They said that they've never felt things like this before when they played this game. And I think that's why it did so well, because Neil Druckmann and the rest of the team at Naughty Dog really brought to the forefront some issues and some subject matter that I think we're not used to dealing with in games or even in real life.
Right.
And some of it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they touched on a lot of different topics in the confines of that game. LGBTQ was a big theme, not just with Ellie, but with another character that's in the game. And just, man, I felt like they handled everything with just dignity and class. Pencilburn is reliving the game as we're talking here, and yes. He knows that the fighting is fun. Yeah, I mean, like the combat in that game is tremendous, and I found myself frequently like trying to plan out the best route. There were certain areas of the game that I would just redo over and over again until I can ensure that nobody touched me. Like not just, I don't want to get seen once,
Hmm.
Um, and then stuff with killing the dogs, that was heartbreaking but necessary. uh,
Yeah, I can only
oh
imagine.
man, but yeah, it's just I'm on board for wherever this franchise goes next, and I'm fully expecting to have mixed emotions about whatever story they're telling is. It took me a while to come to terms with the fact that I don't get to choose the story. The story is chosen for me by somebody else, and I'm glad that I was able to experience it, even if it isn't the experience that I necessarily wanted.
Yeah, what's really interesting about those games, even though I never finished two, is finishing one is kind of like finishing a really really dramatic, like heavy book,
Yeah.
like a physical book, and then you kind of just close it slowly and you kind of put it aside and you're like, ah, Jesus
Mm,
Christ, like let me just file this away. Like, man, was it good, but I also don't want to touch this for a while because it's just so powerful.
yeah.
And there really is no other experience like it. I think for anybody that has not dabbled with this series, you've got to start with one, and if you can make it through two, then I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah. I think if you can find a way to play it sometime this year, I would recommend it. Because I think a big part of the issues that you were having with it was jumping directly from one into the next. I
Yes.
at least had a buffer for a little while. It wasn't a big one, but it was enough to kind of cleanse the palate, so to speak.
Well, I think
So
Damien would agree with this. Like playing The Last of Us 1 is like watching Schindler's List. And then playing Last of Us 2 is like watching Schindler's List 2. And what I did is I watched it immediately.
right,
Those are movies that you watch like once every 5 years. And I think that
yeah,
you don't want to play part one and then wait 5 years and play part two, but
right,
you
right.
definitely want to give it maybe like at least a week or so,
I would
just to kind of.
I would do at least a month.
Sure. I mean, I was going to
uh,
say longer, but
yeah.
I guess if you really want to give yourself a small break, at least a week.
Mm,
But jumping it in right away, I know a lot of folks. Well, they obviously couldn't really do that unless they waited and they played part one and then they played part two on
yeah.
release. But either way, it's important to have a gap.
Yep. I agree 100%, man. Well, we have given out all the Willies. We have given out all the Drewies. Any anything that you think we missed? Anybody in the chat have anything that they think we missed? I know it'll take a second for that to get to everybody. That was an exhausting list, man. Oh yeah, we
You
did
missed
miss
Hades.
we did miss Hades. You're right, we did, and hopefully we can talk about Hades for our 2021 show.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's a lot of games that we missed, quite frankly. It
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
just Hades. There's so many games that are out there that are deserving of our time and attention, and there's just so many hours in a day. It is complicated, unfortunately. If I could do this full time and just play video games, like fuck yeah, but it's not a luxury that I have. So it's I try to squeeze in the stuff that I want when I can do it. Uh, Banks wants to know, what do you think about FF7 remake? Just ignore him.
We
He's
haven't
a
even
troll.
talked about that game.
No, I don't think we talked about it once.
Well,
Uh,
just for some insight for the listeners, like we both have played a lot of games this year. I've completed I think about 7 or 8 games in full, and then I've played about I don't know 10 to 15 total that I didn't beat. So
mm,
even though it sounds like I played 3 games
yeah,
based on this award show, trust me, I have played quite a handful. But I wanted to be really fair with the awards. So
yeah, and I
I
think it's worth noting too that not every game is Game of the Year material.
right.
You know,
Like I loved Vanquish, but it didn't meet the mark for some of these categories.
sure. Tacoma was a game that I played in an afternoon. It was a great indie game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not the best indie game of the year that I played. You know,
Transistor, fantastic game.
Transistor. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, there's some great stuff out there, and man, I wish there was more time. And it's tough because like we always talk about not having enough time to game, And like Cyberpunk is a great example of that. It's such a massive game, but you know, I've been playing a game called Call of the Sea just as like a little side detour because it doesn't require a ton of mental effort and it's a short game. Should I be playing Cyberpunk instead? Probably, but that's where I'm at, you know?
Yeah. Dave, I agree. I think you should do voiceover for the categories. I think would be really cool if we could get like a soundboard of Dave like announcing the categories, like best game, like all of that kind of stuff.
I have a better idea. Let's get Dave on a webcam and we'll just cue him up and have him announce it in real time. But then when he's done saying it, we'll just go back to the two of us and not allow him to speak.
But just have him doing something like eating like pad thai or something on camera, like just hanging out. He's just like sitting there, like not really paying attention. He's eating like pad thai, just like trying not to make a mess. And then all of a sudden we're like, Dave, come on, best art direction. And he's like, oh, wiping his mouth and shit with like a shitty napkin. And he's just like, best art direction. And then he goes right back to the pad thai again. And then I'll do the theme song.
Oh, I love it. That's wonderful. Oh, man. Well, I guess that does pretty much brings us to the end of the episode, huh?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm going to drop a link for our Discord room in the chat room. If you guys are not a part of it, please come on by. Say hello. We'd love to have you in there. Pencil burn. Join the group, man. If you're listening to us for the first time, thank you for tuning in to our Willies and Drewies. We appreciate it. Check us out on the web at www.wdgrpodcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at WDGRPodcast. Will, how can they find you?
SoundCloud.com/Will_gear and Pencil Burn. Go to our website, check out my review for Transistor. You may enjoy it.
And you can find me on Twitter at ScienceStorm. You can go to that Twitter page and see me bitch about shit. You know, anyway. So that's it. So thank you to everybody that tuned in, made this a very special episode. We hope you are all having a wonderful 2021 to start. We are very excited to be back again. That break was nice, but we got work to do, man. We got games to play.
We do. It's a big year.
So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year.